What have I been up to since the last update? First, there was the BPRD redesign. The old design was cool, but it lacked intention other than to vaguely resemble the Del Toro movie, and look like a cross. I wanted something more functional, explorable, and in turn, hopefully more fun. First, there was reference, and it's not like there's a top-down map of the BPRD in the comics. I know there's more than one facility in the lore, and I settled on the Fairfield, Connecticut one. Looking at what panels there were, I imagined a structure around what I saw and drew it out on some grid paper. All I had to do was build it. I actually went to Fortnite for this one. The creative, grid-based building made it easier. I know Dreams has a grid, but with Fortnite I was able to use modular walls, doorways, windows, ceilings, and floors that already had consistent textures and finishes in neat curated kits. In other words, it was easier. From here, it was just designing and iterating. First, I did the lobby. It's probably the most open area in the building. I want there to be a quaint bureau vibe with a pinch of supernatural quirk, maybe some Easter eggs in the future. Above the lobby, there's the R&D lab. I decided to curve the roof so it felt different. Maybe this area could function as an upgrade station. Hellboy won't be able to upgrade the equipment himself, but he can take it to the lab and the two scientists can help him upgrade it. What should you collect for these upgrades? Crafting components? Do I have to make those all individually? I'm not sure, but I did make a chest that Hellboy can open and take from, all while conveniently not seeing whatever he's taking exactly. Connecting these two floors, there's a simple elevator that'll just alternate from top to bottom when one of the connected buttons is pressed. In the next building, there are administrative offices. It's just a basic hallway and room layout that I could repeat on various floors. What's in each room? I'm not 100% certain yet. Maybe there's lockers by fitness, smoking rooms turns into custodial closets, offices for evaluations and interviews, maybe even mini classrooms. We shall see. The second building has multiple floors, so that means I needed to make a multi-floor elevator. That was a multi-part, multi-attempt to get going. The elevator in the lobby has only two options, the ground floor and the lab floor. Any input just generally cycles between the two. A multi-floor elevator needs to be able to stop along a path, and I had to figure out a way to make it work with my basic button press. And I think I did. Could use some polish, but I think it's good enough. On the second floor, there's a communications room. This is where the agent that Hellboy talks to in levels is. Maybe there'll be a side character that you can interact with somehow. On the top floor, there's Broom's office, nicknamed the Broom Closet. I'm sure it was a broom closet, but once Mr. Broom stepped down, he decided to stay close. In fact, down the hall from the special agents. Speaking of the special agents, Hellboy's room has a bed, a little desk of his own, and a bathroom. I imagine he wants to file his horns in private. There's also a wardrobe interaction here, so you can customize just a little bit. On the ground floor, there's also a fitness center. Here, there'll be some fun little mini games. If I get more into setting up stats, maybe workouts will boost attack damage or attack speed for the next mission. Here's where the design of the facility started to branch out and add onto the Fortnite design. Having the initial pieces I did helped my imagination get the ball rolling on what could be. I knew there had to be infirmary rooms, and a larger room for emergency examination/surgery. Fighting supernatural foes is dangerous work. I'm trying to think of potential future cutscenes. Wouldn't a werewolf autopsy be cool, or something like that? There's also a records department connected to the field agent section. It could hold open and closed case files. Maybe you could even find leads or unlock missions on the map. More on the map later. The second building is the mess hall. Everyone's gotta eat, right? It would be hilarious to have Hellboy work behind the counter either in a cutscene or a minigame. Above the cafeteria is recreation. There's going to be lots of places to sit, maybe even some side interactions or minigames. Above recreation is briefing, and this is where you can select missions to deploy on. Eventually, I want you to have to go to the truck to deploy on the mission that you choose to give the player one last chance to maybe hit the gym before a mission. Some minor additions are the ladder, which adds elevation without having to do the old wall climb and jump. A new journal mechanic that'll hopefully let the player know where they are and what they're doing, and a sit-down interaction. Now onto the gameplay and combat. Looking at my last demo, Ted's Red Pallet Ranch, I'm proud of what it was, but I know it could have been better. At some point, I just wanted to release it. and while it wasn't good in every aspect of gameplay, it was good enough. As far as the layout goes, there was tons of empty space in that demo. I suppose I wanted the grandeur of the sprawling landscape to contribute to the atmosphere. It kind of worked, but not really. I ended up feeling like I did the minimum. There are huge chunks of nothing but walking. I want future gameplay to be a little more involved and interactive for the player, even if it's just navigating. Also, the progress was pretty much a straight line. There were no beelines for the player to explore and find anything neat. I was so used to playing that first puzzle to get to whatever I was currently testing, the awkward angles for zones became muscle memory. I did not anticipate that my muscle memory for those awkward zones wouldn't make it into the minds of the players of the game. I saw a playthrough where someone eventually stopped playing because the battery couldn't be placed at the angle they were standing even though they were being prompted, and my heart sank. I need to make these systems more consistent and reliable. There is a single collectible in Ted's Reptile Ranch, and it is more of a test, to be honest. I had some basic interactables and I wanted to see them in level, but I had to think of something. I made a neat little nod to the fans, a reference to a beloved character, but it was placed out in the open. I think collectibles should be rewards for the player. Combat. I gave it a go. It was rough, rushed, and somewhat functional. However, the animations themselves were sluggish in retrospect. Participating in the recent Project Genesis Jam really opened my eyes to how pacing could be exaggerated for attack animations. There's also not enough telegraphing on either side. I kinda know when an enemy is going to hit me, and I kinda know when I'm hitting an enemy, but it should be very clear and readable for players. Regular attack animations have been touched up, both light and heavy. The uppercut has been reworked just a tad. There is now a special bar you can do. If you hold L1, you activate Vril, which is the secret fire, everything has it, and the right hand of Doom can wield it. There is a Vril parry. There are Vril attacks comparable to God of War's runic attacks. There are light and heavy Vril attacks. There's only one of each right now, but probably more in the future. You can also throw a grabbed enemy. Additionally, quickfire has been reworked. Sometimes there was a collision problem and enemies wouldn't take damage even though it looked like the bullet was hitting them. My dodge input was square. Not the worst choice, but both of my inspirations use X, so why didn't I? I couldn't figure out how to avoid conflicting with my enviro input, but I made it X anyway and decided to make dodging an input for environmental interaction, and it works. There was also a bit of tracking when dodging at Ted's Reptile Ranch, but it was very snappy. It felt jarring as a result. You can now double tap X for a dodge roll. I wanted to have the option to really move in combat, and now you do. Reload was triangle. Can't remember the last time that was a reload button in a video game. It was more of a ripple of making square dodge. I never got used to it, and now I won't have to. Now on to that enemy. I was trying to have pathfinding, and I'm not sure why. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but the enemy was primal. It doesn't need super complex behavior systems for this game. Enemies really just need to detect and fight you. More can come later, but the combat has to be the foundation. The logic is all new. I was using pre-made logic I found on Dreams. It was solid, but it was definitely intended for a playable character, and I did not need that much complexity. I made combat behavior simpler, and because I made the logic, I know how to make the systems interact with each other. Disclaimer, it's still a little buggy here and there, but more solid overall. Now, I know there was more than a few ways you could get stuck in the demo. Unfortunately, I hadn't found any way to fix them because I couldn't recreate them consistently, so I didn't know what was causing them. While I haven't made a fully thought out checkpoint system, I have made a manual respawn in the touchpad menu, so hopefully if a player gets stuck or something, they can respawn instead of rewinding the level, losing their progress. From these takeaways, I've tried to tighten up the gameplay moving forward. I won't be redoing Ted's Reptile Ranch just yet, but I'll get there. There's just an entry point. It doesn't make a lot of lore sense, but I think I shall give the player the option to return without having to complete the level. There isn't any level-to-level progression setup, so exiting will reset level progress. I think I'll have to separate the aesthetic path from the development of levels for the moment. The visuals will come, but the level and gameplay have to feel good before it's made pretty. I've attempted to make another sewer level. I'm not sure what it is, but a wise man once told me that Hellboy and sewers just make sense. I hope all the changes that I've mentioned come through and the gameplay is better than before. What's next for the project, you might be asking? I am going to redo Tile Ranch. I want to get started on making more characters, and I need to start optimizing. My thermal management is a little messy to say the least. I plan to redo platforming. I've taken a deep look at the combat, and I have put a lot of effort into getting it to where I want it to be. It's still wonky, but the platforming doesn't have to be super intense, but I'm sure I can make it more fun and less buggy than it is now. The channel has also reached a big milestone, made it to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you to all of you guys that take the time to watch. It means so much that any of you are able to enjoy what I'm sharing. A very special thank you to my patrons, Alex of course, and my newest patrons, Rashid James and Jackson Saluski. I hope I'm saying those correctly. So, when are you going to be able to experience these changes and improvements for yourself? If you've got Dreams on PlayStation, then you can check it out right now. The BPRD is your quaint hub and the connected levels along with it. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel out a ton. And to all of you lovely people watching, thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next update.